Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Analytics Enabling Resilience in Manufacturing, a series of virtual panel discussion unlocking the impact of digital transformation on key areas of the manufacturing domain. I am Raudra Bhattacharya from Hindustan Times, and in today's episode, we will be discussing streamlining methods and processes to improve efficiency and quality. The theme today will revolve around how organizations can implement tech led strategies in production management for a sustainable operation process. Joining me today are some esteemed thought leaders from the industry, including Mr. Rajiv Arora, Global Program Head, New Normal, Technology and Tools at Siemens, Mr. Debashish Banerjee, Head Innovation and Strategy, GDD Novartis India, Mr. Sarajit Jha, Chief Business Transformation and Digital Solutions Officer at Tata Steel, Dr. Avadut Chandrakant Parab, Global CIO at Wockhardt Limited, Mr. Nabuatullah Khan, Practice Head for Manufacturing and IoT Analytics at SAS, and Mr. Venkatraman Iyer, CIO at MTR. A very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us today. We will begin the session with a keynote address by Nabuatullah Khan. This will be followed by a panel discussion where our experts will share their thoughts on today's topic. Without further ado, let's get started. I would first like to invite Mr. Khan to begin his keynote address.
Perfect. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure talking again on this particular theme. So, a little background and a little history on this overall journey that we've traveled. So, we started this particular series of going ahead and breaking down the manufacturing sector into 5 different pieces of M, which is exactly on the themes of material, manpower, measurement, machinery, and finally the methods. Right? So when we look at the overall aspect of what happens across our manufacturing sector, and when I talk about manufacturing sector, let's consider right from a small semiconductor manufacturing organization to a medical device organization to FMCG to CPG and so on. Right? Multiple of those organizations where there is some or the other machinery, there is some or the other raw material going in, and a finished product is coming out. Right? So that's how we consider this landscape to be as manufacturing landscape. And when we're looking at this entire aspect, right, the critical aspects or the critical pillars are these 5 M's. That's how we look at a manufacturing industry. Because these are the critical components. Without any one of this in place, things may not be as expected, things may not yield the results the way the organization is looking. Now, keeping that in mind, we've gone ahead with having those series of sessions, one session a month, and we started the journey almost like about 5 months back, where we went ahead with covering individual session on material, where we spoke about the overall aspects of the supply chain, where we spoke about how can analytics help us identify the right set of products that are needed, where do we source them from, how do I need to arrange my overall forecast, how do I need to plan, how do I need to manage my inventory, and so on and so forth. Then we spoke in a session where we looked at the overall aspects of manpower. So when I talk about manpower, this is exactly where we looked at the central tendency of how do we keep our resources engaged. And this is exactly the time frame when we got impacted with COVID as well. Right? So we had good amount of learnings from these sessions because we had a lot of leaders from various HR-led organizations, or in fact the manufacturing organizations who had nominated a few of the HR heads, where we spoke about how do we try and keep our workforce engaged, how do we try and leverage analytics to upskill, cross-skill, and so on and so forth. And then we had a session which covered the aspects of machinery. When we talk about machinery, this is where we spoke about the overall strategies of the predictive maintenance, the preventive maintenance, or the prescriptive maintenance, ensuring that we keep our OEs high at all times. And then we had a last session where we spoke about measurement, right? Where we spoke about what are those biases that actually creep into our measuring systems today, and how do we try and move away from those biases, and how can we leverage or make use of the advanced tools and analytics to run through the aspects of the measurement and ensure that we have the right set of KPIs listed out that we look for to drive the overall efficiencies within the organization. And here we are today to talk about the overall aspects of methods and processes. right? So that's exactly the topic for us today. So now, given that background, let me quickly try and put forward a couple of images here. Right? So these images, I'm sure most of the audiences and our esteemed panelist members who are already on this particular call will resonate with something of these sorts. Right? So there are a lot of Excel files, or there are a lot of paper-related charts, there are a lot of other details, and a couple of printouts, which are very evident even today, given the overall setup of manufacturing landscape out there. Though we've moved on to digitization, we've gone ahead and worked towards having digital screens out there, but we still cannot live without these printouts, which are on there, right? Which are very, very critical. When we all know for a fact that there is so much of work which is already happening out there, we believe we are under control. When we believe that we are in control, do we really need to look at streamlining our existing methods and processes? Do we really need to go ahead and focus on digitizing? Do we really need to go ahead and make use of analytics or any other alternative method which can help us move towards not only the digitization mode or a digital transformation mode, but also give us the hidden signals, right, which we generally tend to miss out. Just because, not because that we deliberately want to miss that out, but it's because of the humongous data that is sitting in front of us, right? So while all of these questions keep cropping up our minds, what exactly is the key benefit in case if at all we want to go ahead and streamline our processes, if we want to move away from our traditional way of doing things, if we want to refine our methods, if we want to refine our overall aspects of the measurement systems, or be it the methods that we generally tend to follow even today in the manufacturing sector. When this particular question crops up, the critical aspect that I would like to paint out here is when we are looking at improvising anything under the lens of manufacturing. Again, there are many versions of this. There are many people who agree with this. There are many people who don't really agree with this. But when we look at the overall aspect of manufacturing industry, the critical KPIs revolve around time, cost, and quality. So that's exactly what comes out. And can we map this transformation journey onto the digital realm specifically and map them across these aspects? That is exactly what will give us a signal whether we want to latch onto this particular journey or we should just continue doing what we are doing, right? And the critical, again, aspects that I will talk about is when we talk about quality, there is definitely a play where the quality can be enhanced, quality can be improved. And how can we do that? And what are the benefits of improving quality? Is what I'm trying to paint on the screen, where we say, if I improve my quality parameters, I will have customers who are really happy with me. And when I talk about customers, they may be both internal customers and the external customers, which will lead into retention of those customers, which will lead into going ahead and ensuring that just because I'm eliminating a lot of waste and ensuring that my process, which is revolving around quality, is taken care of, I will increase my turnover time as well. And then what will that lead into? Just because my quality is optimal, I will definitely not waste a lot of resources and money on reworking, which will in turn lead into reducing my cost and have shorter turnaround times. So these are the critical aspects that I really wanted to throw some light on and start the session. Right. So now when I talk about this aspect, let's take a look at high level look at what are those common methods which are employed today in the overall process improvement journey within the organizations. And again, these are well known facts that in some shape or form, when you visit a manufacturing floor, you will see these flow charts, you will see these swim lane diagrams, you will definitely see cell forms, you will definitely see cause and effect analysis, SPCs, and FMEs. I'm not saying that these are not effective anymore, but these are the anyways basic premise of giving us a sense of direction. These are the basic concepts which will definitely work not today, but almost say about 100 years from now. These are very strong tools backed up with so much of data behind improvements and so on and so forth. In addition to that, there are a lot of other matrices, and there are a lot of other methods which are employed. It may not be one size fits all. Most of the organizations follow these general principles that I'm trying to talk about. Now, how do we try to pivot, or how do we try to augment this entire process journey, or the process improvement journey is what we're going to talk about. That's exactly where my point comes in, where we say we are in the era where data is at our disposal and it is increasing tremendously. And we just cannot control that, right? And why is that happening? It's happening because connectivity has become very seamless. And while the connectivity has become seamless, the computing power has increased drastically. The cost has come down drastically, right? Keeping all of this in mind, do we actually need to ask ourselves a question whether it is the time for us to try and take the next step or try and take a leap forward on leveraging this information which is at our disposal and enhance our existing methods and processes and couple that up with the art of artificial intelligence or machine learning and try to understand the themes which are underlying, which are generally uncaptured because we may be consciously or subconsciously doing that. And that will come over a period of time because it needs a lot of domain and a lot of industry experience. But what happens tomorrow when those industry experts move out of the organization? You tend to lose out the knowledge as well and the skill as well. That's where the power of data, the power of AI, the power of ML is actually coming in the forefront, right? So that's exactly where I want to ask ourselves a question in terms of, do we really need to go ahead and pivot and take a leap forward? The answer is yes. Is this the time for us to go ahead and shake a hand with the overall digital network? The answer is yes. And that's not because we really want to do it, but that's because we've seen those evidences where the organizations have benefited a lot leveraging these technologies. Now, having that premise set, I just want to throw some light in terms of what's exactly happening today. Right? When we talk about the overall data, data is growing. And to get something out of the data, we need a middle layer, which is called as analytics. That's how I read that. Right? So when we talk about driving data, or in fact driving intelligence or driving outcomes, the predominant pillar that stands out is the overall analytics view. And if we are able to bridge the gap of data to intelligence, the analytics can be as simple as just going ahead and having a visualization dashboard. In today's world, even that is called as analytics. But I'm trying to augment this particular bit to a next level where we say we'll have to somewhere move beyond our aspects of visualization, move beyond our aspects of descriptive analysis. We need to go ahead and align towards the predictive and the prescriptive analytics, which can be coupled up with our traditional way of measuring and going ahead and improving our processes and group it up with our all possible Six Sigma tools or say FMEAs or DFMEAs and so on and so forth. Right? So that's exactly where we are pivoting towards. And AI has become the center point as of today, right? Because AI was a misnomer, or in fact, it is still misunderstood by a lot of industry leaders. And we generally tend to go ahead and believe that the system cannot replace a human mind. I somewhere agree to that particular fact that the system cannot replace a human mind immediately. But the journey is on. People are going ahead with innovative projects which are running and getting implemented at extreme speeds, right? So that's exactly the overall aspect where AI is driving a lot of changes as of today, right? And again, there are a lot of other options that you see on the screen which talk about the unsupervised learning. You look at the terms like optimization, you look at the terms like deep learning, and so on and so forth. But when we try to group all of these terms, right, there is science behind it. And why do we need this science? It's something that we need to question ourselves on. Now, AI is the most powerful analytics that we can specifically talk about. right? But I don't want to spend much of time on it, but I'll just try to pivot away from those aspects of the overall cycle where we try and collect the data, group the data, or make the data ready, analyze it, get the descriptive analytics out, then try to build a specific predictive model, and then go ahead and deploy that model to monitor those results. That's the analytical life cycle that I really want to focus on as of today. Right? So when we talk about humongous data growing in, we have our traditional way of doing things. We have data sitting on our charts. We can leverage that particular data, couple that up with the overall aspects of the high-speed sensory data which is flowing in, along with the batch data that is coming in, which is growing as we speak, make use of that, get the domain expertise and the industry expertise, couple that up, build a specific innovative solution or an innovative use case, travel towards right from the data acquisition to a model deployment journey. That's the analytical life cycle that I wanted to throw some light on. And again, I just want to quickly give a glimpse in terms of what exactly can SaaS help our esteemed clients in this particular journey. Where can we go ahead and collaborate, and how can we work together in terms of combining our hands and trying to make value come out much faster than the traditional way of doing things. And so that's exactly where I just want to give a quick glimpse on SaaS Via and the capabilities and solutions. So SaaS Via is our innovative platform which is completely built with the logic of AI and ML completely integrated into it, which takes our clients to the next level at a much faster rate. We can closely integrate with any given aspects of the batch data or a streaming data. We can connect to any given source with host of adapters and connectors which we have already in place. We can have multiple use cases for industries starting right from banking to manufacturing to CPG or retail, or you can say healthcare and life sciences, and so on and so forth. Right? So that's a quick glimpse that I want to talk about. And here is a quick view, or in terms of a slide, which just gives us a glimpse of how would those floor dashboards or the floor reports change into when we try and travel our journey and move away from those paper-based reports to a more powerful analytical system which can go ahead and combine various signals, unearth and identify key themes which are not really visible to our naked eyes, and how do we try and embark on that particular journey and travel towards a single mission that we have, is to empower and inspire with the most trusted analytics. Right? So that's a quick glimpse that I want to talk about today, and it was a wonderful journey all over these 5 months. Thank you, HT team, for specifically our group going ahead and working with us on this, and thank you, Radha, for being a very good host out here. And in fact, it was a wonderful journey again. So hopefully we'll continue these themes going forward, but probably in the next session it may be a new theme which is going to emerge out, and we would be really happy to have the esteemed panelists as well, who have been our backbone during all of these sessions. Having said that, thank you once again. I'll pass it back to you, Rodney.
Okay, thank you, Nabat, for sharing these insights with us. Lots of food for thought for our audience. And of course, we encourage our audience to share questions that we will take up towards the end of the panel discussion. Before we begin, a quick poll for all of you to set the tone for the evening. Just sharing the poll right now. Our panelists can vote as well. So the poll is live. It will be live for about 40 seconds. Please do vote, encouraging both panelists and all our attendees to vote. So the question we asked was, which of the challenges mentioned below are you facing from an operational point of view in your organization? And there are 3 options. It's a multiple choice question. Lack of visibility across end-to-end processes, issues regarding quality and efficiency owing to lack of a smooth workflow, and escalation of production costs. And I'm just ending the poll now. I'm requesting all our panelists to also join in. Please do join in. We're just beginning with the panel discussion. Yeah, so the question was, which of the challenges mentioned below are you facing from an operational point of view in your organization? Um, 71% said lack of visibility across end-to-end processes. So a single view of the entire process, that's something that is a challenge, especially for the senior management. 40% said issues regarding quality and efficiency owing to lack of a smooth workflow. Great. Thanks a lot. This sets the tone. Requesting all our panelists to again join in, Mr. Jha, Mr. Dr. Parab, Mr. Banerjee, please do join in. Mr. Arora, thank you.
Yeah, Rodra, you have deactivated my video, so I can't switch it on.
Sir, just a second. I wouldn't have. My first question, and this is really to all us stakeholders here. I mean, this is a broad question. What are the major points that you face today in setting up a sustainable operation process? Mr. Banerjee, maybe you could start with that, and then I'd go across the room.
Sure. And I think we just heard about the 5 M's as well. And of course, all of them are important. But I feel more than, I mean, this is just a personal experience that I've had, that more than tools and resource and all that, I feel it's the mindset and the change management around that to really, influence our people to say why to do things differently. Some things come through the measurement, and maybe you can capitalize, you can showcase some of those aspects, but then how does that benefit versus what somebody is already used to be doing? And on top of it, most of the things, like in the AI world or ML world, a lot of it is like prototype, and then you take it forward to scale. And you have challenges around that as well, in terms of data gathering, capturing, and those kind of things, right? And before you can start to see some output and the results. I mean, the way I always see this is that ML and AI is slightly different from prototype and scale. Earlier, you can do a prototype and then you know exactly how to scale it up. But here, the prototype is done for a particular sample data set. Now, when you expand that to the overall, then you again have to deal with the population. And again, the same kind of challenges start to appear as well. So I feel, long story short, I feel change management, I feel mindset change. I feel those kind of things are the most critical one for us to take this forward.
Interesting point. So you're really talking about the people aspect of things more, and of course that's significant. I mean, at the end of the day, it's people driving these decisions. But to your first point, I mean, is it also about picking up the right sample in the first place? Because of course, when you go onto a population, and I've seen this with the insurance sector, right? I mean, there's something called sandboxing that you would be aware of for many policies, and then it's finally when it's taken to the public, a lot of times things go awry. So
yeah, so I can take this example. Let's say you want to do a predictive model for your supply chain and things like that, right? So you can take a sample for a geography. Let's say you say, I want to do this for Germany as a location or blah, blah, right? Now your models would be different as it is not a lift and shift, right? Some indicators you can get, and of course you can scale that up to the other global regions. But it's not the traditional lift and shift. You might have to go through another set of modeling exercise, as we call it, and therefore that sandboxing, yes, this is a great idea, but then the scaling. So the difference from the speed at which you can take the prototype to scale, that sometimes becomes a little bit of a challenge, and it sort of veers off. I think that people aspect that I said, sometimes it is like, it just drags you along, and that becomes a little bit of a challenge from this method standpoint that you just said. And yes, I mean, we are doing that. It's just right. That I feel is the most important issue that at least I can see. Would obviously love to hear from other, panel members.
Mr. Jha, bringing in you here from your experience, I mean, what are these major pain points that you're facing in setting up this very different industry, right? But this sustainable operations process, what are these major pain points?
So I would agree with what Debashish was saying. It's ultimately the problem is what happens between the years. It's not so much about the technology that Nabuat was presenting. I think that fixes itself. Having said that, there is the end-to-end visibility is a real problem, and unless that's sorted out, you don't have the data foundation to really make any meaningful insights or kind of incisions into the processes. I think talent is a huge challenge. We don't have traditionally the talent that's available to us is not the talent that was set up to do AI and ML. Third huge issue is the fact that these things cost money, and often the very areas where they are required are the areas that are that perceive themselves to be not to be able to afford them, though they are the most ones who need to afford it. And the business cases, making the business case sometimes is challenging. And I think last but not the least, I don't think we have the mindset that business viability, user lovability, which so business viability drives the business case, user lovability drives the adoption case, and technological feasibility drives whether this is, as Russians say, as Kafka or the real world. So that the but cycle, we don't even have people who think in that manner. And so, as Debashish was saying, things move ever so slowly. Over to you.
So I was just going to come to you, Mr. Your perspective on this.
Yeah, so thanks to Debashish and thanks to Mr. Sarajit to share that. So I really, where I come from, my thought is, we all talk of digital transformation, IoT, which is more technology. And I really agree with what Debashish and even Sarajit said that. For me, what I've done is, which I'm really running in my organization is, I said that the holistic approach for driving transformation is a 4E model, where first E stands for engage. How do you engage with the customers? Typically, we engage the customer only when there's a demand, but we need to be more proactive to drive transformation and drive that, especially in the manufacturing sector. Second, what Sarajit said, second E stands for empowerment. How do you empower your own teams? Are they having that knowledge to work on AI or machine learning or the blockchain of the world? Do you have partners? Do you have to start a community with whom you can work and drive the transformation? Third, E stands for enablement. How is your ecosystem enabled? Is your ecosystem ready to drive that out? You still are working on a client server or partly hybrid cloud, but does your system allow to have a AR, VR, machine learning, to have that kind of computing power, the algorithms, what we talk about, the issue machine learning part of it? And fourth, E stands for elevate. Then only you can elevate your experience. And that's where it comes, what even Devashi was sharing. How can we move away from a waterfall model to an agile model? How can we have those sprints in between to make it a shorter life cycle, shorter things to make it a success? So for me, that is the holistic approach, and that comes from top. When I say top, means is the mindset of the leadership and down the level. And that is the one which is really getting a concern. We always look for outside, but we don't look at inside. And that's where I believe, I agree with what Sarajit, what Debashish shared. That's what I really work on. Back to you.
Wonderful. So clearly a common theme, people, leadership, talent. I mean, these are all very, very key aspects, and all our panelists are agreeing. Dr. Parab, your thought here especially from a pharmaceutical space, a very critical industry over the past 10 months. I mean, what is your view on this subject? Sustainable operation process. What are the pain points?
Thank you so much. I think most of you spoken the people part of the triangular vertex, and it's true. And whether it is pharmaceutical industry or other industry, that triangle of people, process, and systems, or technology, whatever you say, unless people start owning it, which is very fundamental, there will be a list of reason why project can be stopped, or project can be diverted, or the goalpost can change. And if you really do the root cause analysis, it is never because of the process, never because of the technology, but it is always because of the people. And most of the transformation which we do it, we find this technology is going to be fit. People are as from the triangle of people, process, technology, we have to shift to a triangle of mindset, tool set, and skill set. Is this equivalent of this triangle has been shifted to mindset, tool set, and skill set, or no? Because people are going to be same. People are going to be who have seen earlier operational excellence 1.0 and operational excellence 2.0. In other terms, we may say industry 4.0, right? But that shift of mindset from responsibility to ownership is very, very vital. Unless that happens, no matter what skill set you have, what tool set you have, they're always run short of this. The project will not see the light of the day. And simple example, what happens in a very integrated, we execute a project which are very integrated, which are maybe supply chain, maybe manufacturing, maybe quality, all those things happen. Each one will say that my on time in full delivery is 90%. Even if you say each one says 90%, what organization gets 70%, right? So are we looking at project from the, rather than a distributed KRA, looking at the integrated KRA is one of the major problem today in industry. And now the digital transformations, they're cut across the cross-functional thing. We need to relook at differently. So the thinking has to change. Otherwise, what we have experienced during electronic system, which came from manual to electronic system, which was change management. Now from electronic system, we are going to digital, which is a transformation systems. So that's my view.
I mean, I would probably add one more element for many companies looking at legacy. You have multiple factories. The new factory you're building with a completely Industry 4.0 mindset, with all the sensors, everything in place. But when you're working with a mix and you have these older factories as well, how do you sort of get that single view across? Because that's particularly challenging. I'm sure Mr. Venkatraman, asking you the same question as well, and your perspective on this. A lot of interesting viewpoints across our panelists. So,
yeah, I was hearing the speak of my colleagues, and largely agree with 2 points which came through. One is anyway the people part of it, the ease of adoption or engaging, and what we have done, and we realized early on that engagement is crucial for the success of any business application, for that matter. And in this case, we constituted something called as a steering committee, which consists of the business heads, and the key role is played by the business heads and IT partners with them. It's for them to justify the business case while we bring in the technology part and we steer the project from the project management perspective. But they are the key stakeholders. So there lies the key to adoption, and it's them who talk about the business justification part of it, the benefit part of it, and all, and then championing the usage of it obviously is easier from that perspective. Second thing is the maturity of the process part of it. I mean, while the processes could be identified in conjunction with the functional counterparts, but how mature is the process, which by which I mean that is it sustainable over a period of time. And third one is agility. I mean, one of our colleagues was talking about that. How agile are we? How responsive are we to the changing times and all? A process which was quite relevant a few years back may not be relevant now with the changing market dynamics and all. So obviously these three aspects have to be taken into consideration. And the fourth, which is obviously the technology part of it, which I think is the last one. I mean, not that it is not important, but it's important. But these are key to the success of identification and adoption and realization of the benefit for the organization.
Thank you. Mr. Banerjee, a very specific question to you, right? I mean, you had a very interesting part of Novartis, global drug development. I mean, on a separate conversations, I have many other questions to ask you, but very, very specific to our topic today, right? I mean, what are the latest strategies in production management that will be a game changer for the investigative medicine industry, right? And do you think the strategies could create an impact in other industries as well? Because I mean, you're an ex-consultant, right? I mean, I'm sure you look across where are the benefits we could sort of draw. So, would love to hear.
So, I mean, from a technology standpoint, I can tell you a couple of things that we are very, very much integrated and trying to help as well is on the digital twins, for example. We believe on the production line, complete, digitization, having the digital twins around that is a massive, piece that will be super helpful. Already a few of the industry leaders are having that, doing that and all that. The second that comes to my mind is all your AR, VR kind of thing, and especially more from a training perspective, I believe. In our labs, for example, you need like technical experts. You spoke about pharma industry, right? So you need like technical experts, and these experts are rare and niche. So how do you make sure that they come alive in avatars those are the kind of thought process that's playing in our mind, that if some technician is working and you all of a sudden you need to speak to somebody, and how do you make it more sort of personal and all that, right? So that's another angle where it's moving. The third aspect on the data science piece is something that I call translators. The way I see this, and especially true for pharma industry, I'm sure it is true for other industries as well. See, the medical doctors and the pharmacist and all of us, we speak a very different language. It's a full, let's say, undergrad, postgrad, PhD programs that people have gone through, and they have learned a language around that, right? Now, when all of the things around data science and all that comes in, that's another very different stream, right? Where people have learned computers and maths and all, and they speak a very different language. And we felt the issue becomes when the business users are trying to translate that problem into a data scientist, and the data scientist is trying to solve it and trying to explain the implementation back. So I think that middle layer, translators, I'm calling them, who can translate how to run a business, and who understands a little bit of that business language, and who understands a little bit of the data science language enough to be able to run the project smoothly. And I think we are lacking that skill set in many ways. So that's another piece, I think, from a strategy perspective. That's another piece that one could think of. And last but not the least, it is less of technology, but I do want to highlight this. Very important, I believe, is around the carbon neutrality. I think the world is having a lot of challenges right now with climate changes and things like that. And I think especially pharma industry, at least we are committed to have the production lines and all that carbon neutral by 2025. It's a massive undertaking, it's a big bold objective, but we are committed on that, and waste and water neutral by 2030. So that's, I believe, is one of the other strategies that we absolutely have to look at. How do you get rid of PVCs? How do you get it more like paper-based technologies and things like that? So a lot to come on those, but I touched upon 3 or 4 aspects. Obviously, first 3 was more digital and all, but I do want to end up with this carbon neutral aspect here.
And that's a very important point. I mean, Industry 4.0 technology can definitely help save power, reduce wastage, across all those aspects. Mr. Arora, a question for you. What kind of trends have you witnessed in the adoption of analytics across diverse industries? I mean, how can manufacturers use data analytics to gain a holistic view of an enterprise's work process? So you're on mute.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes.
I know you asked a very good question. So let me first come back to the previous question, what our friend Debashish was answering on the digital twin. So what we has really actually, we are elaborating the digital twin into 3 different areas. First, that how can we have a digital twin product where you can design, simulate, and verify product in the entire digital environment before you actually invest on the physical prototypes of the assets. That's one. We have gone one step beyond that. We have also gone to how can we do a production planning where we can plan, simulate, and optimize all the virtual environment of the productions in digitally, and then go for digitals. And what we have seen that the digital product and production planning have shown the real world how it would look in the real production to drive it out. And that's something we're really finding very effective. Now, coming back to your specific question on the IoT, as you all know, we have a MindSphere as an IoT platform, which is a very effective platform. And we see that it really helps to capture data at different levels. And to just share a brief this thing around it, we actually found a huge difference that how can we have a first step right with enhanced flexibility with the data points. That has come forward to all of us. Second, some numbers what we have actually seen, and I cannot name the customer, but we have seen that how the 77 different products variants what we're building on 3 different lines has gone to 180 products on one single line. That's one. How we have really gone from 22 quality parameters what we had initially before the IoT to 88 parameters, reducing by 1/6 of the life cycle. How we have gone for dedicated line for each frame to a universal frame for multiple products from 1 to n. So that's how we have seen the IoT has really helped us drive that transformation for us to take it forward.
Thank you. Dr. Parab, in the pharmaceuticals industry, you must have faced a lot of inconsistent and unprecedented consumer demand last year, right? I mean, demand has definitely been volatile. Many other non-corona-led treatments, were not happening. So, how do you sort of, and especially consumers are also, increasingly looking at, the best product at competitive prices. That's also been another major challenge because there are so many stakeholders to play at, even when a pricing sort of situation happens. How can manufacturers streamline operations thus and meet this increasingly demand, high demand and expectations from the industry, both from a B2B or a B2C consumer lens?
See, largely, most of the pharmaceutical like us, we are into B2B rather than into B2C. We in any pharma, you pick it up, there are primary, secondary, and tertiary. So it's very clearly laid down thing. But Wokhard, who's a global player, we need global strategies, and then the expectation in other countries is different than of India. Second point, since all of us are into something called a generic kind of pharmaceutical structure, where the prices are going day by day down, and then the efficacy of the product which is demanded is very high. So how do you, the challenge comes to is how do you meet the demand of people are getting more and more immune, so your product is effective when it comes to the patient safety, as well as the cost of the product cannot go up, which means we hardly have a choice of just re-engineering that process, and you have to look at some kind of technology, some kind of automation, where the cost of the overall cost of the value chain comes down, and you start getting the benefit to the people. So that's one. Second is more and more we are looking now as a part of physical setup connected to cyber. It's becoming more and more that world which we are looking at as an operation excellence part. Now, physically, you always has a limitation to reach to the within the ecosystem, whether it is a doctor, whether it is your patient, whether it is your distributor, whether you are our chemist outlet, and so on and so forth. Now, can we continue like this? Answer is no, because the more spectrum you cover, and which is possible today with the digital coming in, whether through some kind of a partnership, some kind of co-creating a value, some using a lot of sensors and exchanging the data you were using. To earlier, there was a time that integrating the system was a big challenge. Today, that challenge is no longer. So, with a simple technology, you can connect the ecosystem, and you don't need to open your main system. You can always, for example, we connected the trade finance using a blockchain. You don't need to really open your system, but you can still, dissipate the information to many of your intent. So, with the time has come where you need to ensure that you co-create a value between your partners, between your consumer, and not only co-create but also give them at fairly affordable price. So these are some of the challenges, and technology is started definitely addressing. We have to keep it in mind that many of us, we try and apply a technology to an inefficient process. It just amplifies that inefficiency. But if you apply the digital technology to the efficient process, it's as a multiplier. That's a thing we look at. So look at from this perspective, and probably we are also trying to see how we can treat the customer differently, differentiate between the different profiles of the customer, and meet the unmet demand, rather, which are the same. The needs are same, but their wants are different today. So that's the fundamental thing, and those wants needs to be profiled well, and you need to meet them. So that's.
Thank you. No, so clearly understood. Of course, quality demands and efficacy demands and all of that is going up, and pricing has to go down. So the only place where that extra value has to be squeezed out from is the entire manufacturing process, right? Mr. Jha, coming to you, and a very specific question on the core sector, the iron and steel industry. Can you the manufacturing of iron and steel, many believe that requires a more streamlined manufacturing process and automation going forward. How is that turning out? I know you've been working on a lot of projects. Can you cite a few examples from your from your experience, recent experience, and how has that turned out? And not necessarily only for Tata Steel, but maybe if you could talk about the industry in terms of technology adoption and unlocking mobile.
Okay, so before I say the next part, I think in all humility, it must be said that Tata Steel is not doing all that it should or all that it could in digital. Having said that, there are 54 World Economic Forum Lighthouse Identity sites for Industry 4.0. 44 of those sites are discrete manufacturing, Siemens, Schneider, Procter and Gamble, discrete manufacturing. Only 10 of those sites are process industries. Of those 10 sites, 6 sites are actually iron and steel. And of those 6 iron and steel sites, 3 of them are with Tata Steel. And the only 2 sites in India are Kalinganagar and now Jamshedpur. So just to give a bit of perspective, Kalinganagar was a lighthouse identity site in the 4th year of its existence. So it was almost like a startup that was born in digital and kind of trailblazed its path into, lighthouse stardom. Jamshedpur became a lighthouse just 3 days ago. It is 114 years old. It has got all the characteristics of a steel museum, and yet it is a lighthouse site for the way it is using analytics and AI and integrating modern technologies to get huge benefits. So I'll take out 3 examples from Jamshedpur and 2 examples from Jamshedpur, and then they'll talk about 2 examples of the other lighthouse identity sites in iron and steel of our competitors, which we really venerate in and a lot to emulate. So quickly, one is sintering. So sintering is a very important process. It's in the overburden of steel. We have a sinter making process where suspended particulate matter is emanated. These plants are very old, by the way. Using advanced analytics, we were able to do 2 things. We cut down emissions by 70% without investing a single rupee of capital. And the other thing that we did was there is a lot of return fines. So, you have return fines because the sinter goes in, it breaks down, it comes back. We were able to reduce return fines by about 30% using advanced analytics. So that's the kind of, and the other is, a lot of people will say, can you do stuff without investments? So we have followed, as Nabuat was saying, we have followed a very simple method of having 4 pillars of our analytics journey. One is simple visualization. Can I create a single version of truth on something like Tableau? Second is stochastic, simulation. So we use a tool called AnyLogic to create scenarios of what can happen. Then we use simple Python to predict what is likely to happen. And then because it's uncertain, we use stochastic optimization on a tool called AIMS to inform our decisions. So this entire platform is what we have built in-house. So those are 2 of our examples that anybody can emulate. Coming to our competitors, very quickly, Baushan Steel, they can run their blast furnace, which has millisecond data, from 3,500 to 4,000 kilometers away. Now, and I always tell my friends in Google that is the steel industry more digital or Google? Google is still human beings to code. The steel industry, nobody has touched a ton of steel in 100 years in any steel plant and lived to tell the tale. So why are we less digital than Google? Anyways, that's just a thinking point. And the other is POSCO, which has created a dark plant because, we would need maybe 2,000 people to run a plant of that nature. They don't have a single guy, so they don't need lights. Machine vision does not need light. It creates its own vision. So they are having a plant which is completely dark, not a single human being. So those are some of the things that dirty steel and big steel is apparently doing a lot of stuff which is jazzy and right out there. And obviously the scale at which we do it is just humongous. Over to you, Rodman.
Very, very interesting and a lot of nice anecdotes. I think this also is a bit of a myth buster, as to many people believe, of course, that the core sector, iron and steel, etc., maybe a little way behind on that curve, where you got on the technology curve. But that's definitely not the case here. I mean, in fact, also to Mr. Banerjee's point about sustainability, if you're able to reduce by 70%, I'm sure at the scale that you operate, it's a massive, right? I mean, very interesting. Mr. Iyer, coming to you, In the consumption of packaged goods, there was a surge during the pandemic. For the first few months, in fact, you saw a lot of hoarding, demand sharply going up. But of course, supply was a major challenge. How did analytics help you in tiding over this storm, matching pace in the supply demand cycle, and also the huge volatility across regions that you would have also witnessed?
Yeah. See, coming to this, obviously there was a surge in demand, there was fluctuation in supplies from our partners, and then there was lack of predictability in terms of the lead times and all for the raw materials which we would buy.
Right.
Now, obviously, these were some of them were a pleasant surprise for us. I mean, the surge in demand, but then to meet that demand and to address the fluctuation in supplies, that was a challenge in itself. So here came analytics, which at least gave us some kind of demand sensing on the fly. I mean, using tools like Power BI, which we have, we could sense the demand. We could bring in some element of predictability and then plan, and we could even forecast and all, and then obviously in the entire supply chain process, when the element of predictability came in, it helped us a lot in tuning up our production. See, the situation was that in our manufacturing locations we were operating with approximately 50% of our workforce, given the situation. Now, how could we bring in efficiency so that the 50% of workforce, a lean workforce, would ensure that the production and efficiencies are of that order to meet the demand? So here came the systems, here came the applications, here came the analytics and all, which helped us to address the need and all. So that's how we did that.
Great. So a perfect case of how technology was able to provide you, real-time insights and able to sort of plug it back into the entire process. I have a quick poll, the second poll. This is just a yes/no question, and then final two questions for the day. Just sharing that. And the poll is open to our panelists as well. So this will be up for about 40 seconds. And the question is your organization effectively utilizing analytics for streamlining manufacturing processes? We also have some interesting questions from our attendees. I would love to take about two at the end of the session. Some have already been answered by one of our colleagues. So the question was, is your organization effectively utilizing analytics for streamlining manufacturing processes? 54% said no, 46% said yes. A question for Naboat, for the ones who are yet to invest in automation, which factors are, what is really stopping them from making this investment? Are there any initiatives that you guys are taking for better customer education?
Very valid question again, Rodha. Thank you. So let me try and link this up to what I've heard from our esteemed panelists, right? Right from Rajiv to Venkat to Debashish to Dr. Parab to Sarajit. Right? We heard a lot of messages with respect to how the industry is transforming. While the industry is transforming, the key essence when we started this entire discussion was revolving around the overall change management from the people's standpoint. That's exactly where we started off, right? Where we spoke about the challenges that we perceive, or in fact,
Naboat, sorry, your volume is a little low. If you could be a little.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, better.
Right. So what I was trying to cover is the overall aspects that we heard about the people challenges, right, or the people mindset was the key area that everyone spoke about when we started off the conversation. And then as we progressed, a couple of other emerging themes came out where a few classic examples were spoken about in terms of how everyone is looking at the overall reality. When I talk about reality, we are talking about linking up to digital twin, we are talking about AR, VR, we are talking about IoT helping out a huge transformation in the business. We also heard from Sarajit on the overall blackout steel plant and so on and so on. Right? So when I try to encompass all of this, there has been a change which has already started. Right? It's not that it's not started. It's just that how we perceive or how we look at this particular problem is. That's how I'll try to put this across, saying it has already started, which we may be subconsciously doing it, but we are not admitting it, right? So that's how we have to try and figure out as to how can we consciously accept that this change is needed and this change is already in play and this change is which will take you to the next level. That's how something we'll have to bridge through. And coming back to your first set of questions, Raudra, what exactly SaaS doing in terms of training the overall aspects? We've gone ahead with a larger drive where we are talking about educating our customers with various means in various mediums, right? Where we are talking not only about our dedicated clients who are signed up with us, but we are also going ahead and educating the prospects as well, right? Saying as to how the transformation is happening. We are doing a lot of webinars like how we are doing here. One of them, like in addition to these webinars, we are also going ahead and giving out free trial software versions from SaaS standpoint, where somebody can just log into the SaaS.com, try to go ahead and get a 15-day or a 7-day or a 20-day trial period license, which can be downloaded, where they can try and do something on it. And there are host of dedicated training courses as well, which SaaS is offering completely free of charge. And now the other side of it, we've tied up with the most esteemed universities as well around the globe, where we are going ahead and ensuring that SaaS is part of their curriculum as well. So the journey is humongous. Right? We are trying to contribute from our standpoint because we call ourselves as SaaS Institute. Right? It is not SaaS. It is SaaS Institute. And we believe in going ahead and giving out to the world and ensuring that we contribute at least to a portion of making the future workforce ready with the skills that are needed for the future. Right? So that's how I'll answer that.
Thanks, Nagwat. So interesting. So it's like, I mean, one of the panelists spoke about a lack of the right people and skill sets. So I think a lot of this can be helped and can be solved when companies reinvest back into the ecosystem. My last question, really, and this is for all our speakers, and I'll ask Mr. Arora to address this first. I mean, utilizing analytics can have a huge impact on optimizing, the entire value chain, right? So, could you highlight some short-term and long-term gains that organizations can achieve through analytics based on your experience?
So I'll just share the two experience with you since I come from two different industries, very new to manufacturing also. What I really see, analytics helps you improve quality of delivery. It helps you improve the life cycle of the product. It also helps you, I would say, also on the quality parameter, what we have it out. Not only that, I can give you what we have been actually testing it out. How can it also help you the forecasting?
Right.
And especially on the revenue forecasting, and which is very touchy topic for the financial people and even the supply chain people. So what we have been testing and what we really find that if you use the right algorithm with the right data points, it can give you 95% accuracy on the revenue forecasting, especially in the products business. So we are really working on that right now. We are in the second quarter. It takes 6 quarters to get that. Coincidentally, I have a past experience of working in the past. So we've seen that how in 6 quarter product business can help you get a revenue forecasting to an accuracy of 90-95%, which is very niche for the CFO community.
So I would like to add to this, and forecasting part is pretty interesting, and obviously we have been leveraging that. But across the organization, when you bring analytics, there's a quick shift from the so-called gut feel to database decision making, right? And you do a better RCA, root cause analysis is based on data, the whys and all, which you start asking, you get the answers which are quite precise, and you delve down to the root cause of anything pretty fast. The other thing which is there, in our discussions, when we do our discussions with the business guys or in the management circles and all, we focus on the issue more. Earlier it was kind of a criticism or individual, but now it is critique and all. And then, in essence, if you have to sum it up, it's a quicker analysis, quicker decision making and corrections, and then quicker realization, obviously, because that's the what.
Interesting. So it's a change in attitude entirely from I really like what you said, a gut feel based approach versus
quantified approach.
Yeah, a mathematical and scientific approach, right? I mean, that's extremely Important. Dr. Parab, your thoughts here. Could you highlight any short-term gains and long-term gains that organizations can achieve through implementation of analytics?
Analytics is a journey. What we feel it, because now it's in the cycle of plan, do, check, act. Analytics becomes the window to improve from baseline to the new one. Otherwise, unless you measure, you will not be able to improve. So analytics gives you a window from the low bottom of the pyramid to the apex, the similar view of consolidated view by less consolidated view, and the rows and columns. So that's something which is very vital, I think, which is happening, and the change we started seeing. We also see analytics in a very immediate thing. You get a descriptive analytics, which is very vital. But as we are going forward, where we systems start using intelligence to to become an assistant to, let's say, for a supply chain purchaser, or for the quality person who say that predictive time it will take for release the material, predicting whether the product is going to be successful in the way it has gone through the testing cycles and all kind of thing. It also helps you for supply chain people and all, when to buy which material with which vendor. So many factors which are started from descriptive to the intelligent analytics, which can be a short term to medium thing. And as we go, as we mature it, I'm sure it will be interwoven. And for this, organization has to take the first step of unification of analytics platform. Within the organization, we have seen, because of the cloud bursting, people start just going on a cloud and creating analytics in a very silos manner, just the way we have system. The operations people will say, we have our analytics. Finance or the other team, they say, we have our analytics. That needs to be forgotten, so that we get an integrated KRA of the organization met. The measurables which are cross-functional, they can be measured well. Very importantly, key parameters. It could be your working capital. It could be your cash flow. All those in a consolidated manner, you can really get into the. So first, as a short term, you should take a step into unification of your analytics platform. B, take your journey from descriptive to slightly intelligent, which can be a short term to medium term, and then you can move from there onwards. That's my suggestion.
Interesting. So unification of all the analytics used by different functions, right? And this is something very common that one has seen. I mean, marketing uses its own CRM, and then you have. Mr. Banerjee is smiling, but you know what I'm talking about, right? I mean, the business side has their own data. They don't speak to each other, and sort of everybody operates in their own, and are happy with their own sub-process level metrics being defined. But an overall,
each becomes the power center and the top management, and because they meet people on different times, different functions, each one dominates with his own information. But when the management sees the one truth through one unification, they can correlate these functions. How effective? That's where I was initially talking about. Remember, everybody says I'm 90% working at my 90% efficiency, but when you look at the integrated one, you would be at 70%. That what organization doesn't need it, and this can only be found out if you have a one unified platform. And we are making inroads into that as well. And it is very important for IT and OT data to come closer. And in pharma, we still have slightly, and I'm sure it is same with other industry. OT data has a dominance of scientific data. IT data has a dominance of the business data. So business and scientific data, if they come closer, you might see the different pattern. You might see the better insights also. So our endeavor is towards that now, what we're doing at Wockhardt as well.
Thanks, sir. Thanks, Dr. Bhairav. Mr. Banerjee, your thoughts on this? And this is something I think you mentioned a little while ago about the business intelligence and the technical guys sort of being able to work together. Yes, sir.
So yeah, no, thank you. I mean, completely agree with Rajiv sir, Venkat, Dr.
Dr.
Parab and all. I mean, absolutely. I don't want to sort of repeat all of that. Of course, a lot of these kind of different examples that we are seeing, forecasting, supply chain management, optimization, a lot of those kind of things are happening, especially for pharma. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. One is this data management might look very sort of relevant to all the industries, but when you start to work in the pharma industry, you have got a lot of data privacy challenges, right? Within your own systems, they can't talk to each other. That's like sort of because you need to be private and you cannot share the patient level information and all that, right? So that poses an extra layer of problem. And how do you then unify all of that? So obviously that takes a little bit more thought process. How do you separate the layer of data versus visual, and each can relate back to that data, but they can only see a part of the data, and all those kind of things that you need to look at. I feel a lot of these short-term engagements and work that was going on for us, at least I can say a lot of these projects were mushrooming and we were supporting all of that. However, from a leadership standpoint, then we took a very conscious call. How do you move this to a longer term strategy? And there are, I mean, a couple of things that I believe might be very useful. At least we are trying to get onto that journey and the path we are on. One is that we consciously said that how do you make data science as ubiquitous as Excel, right? It is like as easy as Excel can be used. So that's that mindset that we as leaders were starting to think. It should not come across, because so far also these short-term projects, everybody's like, oh my God, I'm doing like a machine learning project, right? We want to make it easy for everybody to be like you. So how do you make that investment? How do you make your long-term strategy in such a way that it just becomes like for Excel, you don't say, oh my God, I'm working on Excel, right? So we want to make it as ubiquitous as Excel, right? And there's a lot of work that's going on in terms of building our model factories, building our own GitHubs, because we can't share things like that. So a lot of work that is happening on those front. And I'll end by like one example, like again, a longer term, we call it a lighthouse kind of a project that we have undertaken, is like an Amazon example, right? How do you make your marketplace? And we believe, as Novartis, I think we are big enough. Our expenditures are like greater than $1 billion just on procurement and manufacturing and all that stuff, right? Roughly, I mean, don't quote me on numbers, but it's pretty huge. And we go out to a lot of vendors and we procure so many things. How do you optimize that? So can we build our own recommendation engine, for example, for our procurement team when we are working on these kind of manufacturing units and chemicals and beakers that we are trying to purchase for ourselves, right? And how do you make it seamless? So can we install our recommendation engine in many ways, which will optimize your price, time to procure, and everything else? So those are, like, I will say, some of these long-term strategies. I mean, while procurement team was working on their own specific problem areas that we heard from everywhere, I think we are trying to shift that and make it more long-term investments and say, does this kind of a long-term strategy make sense for us to adopt and take forward? So a lot of these kind of examples are happening. I just sort of touch upon a few that that came to my mind.
Thank you, Mr. Banerjee. I think very interesting. I mean, obviously, data, patient level data is a challenge. But that's something, I mean, individual data is an issue across a lot of industries. I mean, of course, medicine is far bigger an issue, but we understand even Google is trying to move away from that and look at cohort level data instead of individuals for better ad targeting. Maybe that's a solution out there. Thanks a lot for this conversation. A few of our panelists had to leave. They had a cutoff, but thanks a lot for joining in. Mr. Banerjee, Mr. Khan, Mr. Raman, again, thanks for joining us today, taking the time out today evening. A big shout out to the SAS team for partnering with us for this series. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Bye.